Hello video gamers, I'm Shu Tanaka.
I'm Chan Tanaka.
And as we close out the first month of 2020, we thought it prudent to pop in here and let you know that we are still here. Of course we are. Where would we go?
Who else would have us?
You are currently listening to Shu and Chan Unscripted, our raw, unfiltered audio podcast, which is a great deal like all of our other material, except without all that wasteful and inefficient planning and effort.
Speed bumps on the road to productivity, no question about it.
Appropriately for this time of year, video gamers, today's topic is game industry delays. This is the season for it. Virtually all major titles originally slated for early 2020 release have now been pushed back.
Final Fantasy VII, Marvel's Avengers, Cyberpunk 2077.
And because the internet is an unfiltered cesspool of armchair experts chomping at the bit to assert their self-accredited authority on all topics, you've probably already seen a number of their hot takes on the subject floating around.
From near-epic diatribes on poor design decisions and managerial incompetence to your basic entitled whining, the community has made their voices known, all while staying well within the expected parameters of a group with the same basic grasp on the technical processes of game development as your average third grader has on human reproduction.
We, on the other hand, are actual game developers and as such have unique insight into the conditions that drive video game delays. Like, for instance, the unfortunate series of circumstances that led to us releasing Extreme Shuffleboard 2005 in 2017, and having to pretend that all the Chuck Norris memes we left in were intentionally retro.
Let's start with some of those circumstances, brother. Tell our listeners, why do games get delayed?
All kinds of reasons, brother. Financial, technical, legal, mortal. Any major mishap can push production over the line, but when it comes to large-scale AAA game development, the most significant factor in suffering a delay is that the developers simply have no idea how long development is actually going to take.
Expand on that, brother, because it would seem like larger operations would be the most likely to have safeguards against that sort of thing.
Oh, they have safeguards. All sorts of expensive managerial components dedicated to getting the product out on time and under budget. They just don't actually work. Let's look at what happens when a developer first announces a game's projected release date. This is essentially the same process as when a bar drunk announces that he intends to take on the bar's Hot Wings Challenge. In both cases, the subjects are swimming in overconfidence and for basically the same reason. They see the task ahead as something they're familiar with, something they've already done numerous times before. The developer has already made several video games. The drunk man has already put numerous dubious things into his mouth. Check and check. It's only later, when both parties are actually attempting to carry out these promises, that the unique challenges of each endeavor becomes apparent. Yes, the bar drunk has eaten hot wings before, but never so quickly and never in quantity sufficient to liquefy his intestines. These are concerns that simply weren't a part of the original planning process. And while the bar drunk has to deal with the consequences of his folly considerably sooner than the game developers, they both end roughly the same way, with a lot of crying inside a public restroom.
Now hold on, brother. Very few bar drunks are known to be brilliant tacticians, but tell our listeners, why would a AAA publisher not be able to foresee development pitfalls?
The thing to remember about game development is that it's based on continually evolving technology. The entire industry is predicated on doing things that were quite literally impossible only a few years before. What are the big industry buzzwords these days? Ray tracing, Ultra HD, hand tracking, Knuckles the Echidna.
That's a Sonic character.
I'm pretty sure it's a rendering technique. The point is, when you're dealing with cutting-edge technology, you're in uncharted territory.
Specifically, the territory of the Uncharted movie, which has been delayed for over a decade.
Precisely so. Unless you're dealing with one of the annual sports franchises or, well, a Nintendo sequel, people expect new releases to be radically advanced compared to what's come before. And the price of dealing with new, unoptimized technology, never being 100% sure what it is that you're actually doing.
So your stance is that production delays are simply inevitable when dealing with new technology.
I'm saying that if you want a game that actually does have the insane malarkey that the developers told you it was going to do when they first announced it, you'd best be prepared to wait a while.
And I suppose this brings us to the topic of crunch, a subject under increasing industry scrutiny of late.
Yes. Well, I see where you're going with that, brother, and let me go on record as saying that Tanaka Brothers game development does not not require unpaid overtime from any of its employees, as I am pretty sure that Arnie, being a ground squirrel, cannot legally be considered an employee in the state of Ohio.
Actually, brother, I was referring to a segment of the community that applauded the most recent spate of game delays, believing that they would allow the developers ample time to complete their respective games without having to resort to crunch.
Yes, I can see how our nation's public school system might have eventually resulted in that sort of assessment, but no, unfortunately that's quite wrong. Delays almost always mean more crunch, not less. In most cases, crunch is already well underway before a delay is officially announced. It's management deciding that the initial production estimate, which almost certainly included some padding, is going to be inadequate even with all employees laboring to within an inch of their miserable lives. They don't announce a delay one evening and then tell everyone at the next morning meeting that the crisis is over and everyone can go back to sneaking games of Candy Crush in a private tab.
So what can a company do to avoid crunch, brother?
I don't know. Cut features? Get used to the idea of releasing one game a decade? How did this become my problem?
Just trying to fill airtime, brother. Also, we are game developers. It is the sort of thing that should be on our radar.
Okay, then you tell me, Chen. How does a company avoid crunch, if that's what they really want to do?
If that's what they really want to do. Are we not already of a general accord that crunch is a bad thing?
Are thunderstorms a bad thing? They're an inevitable thing. The product needs to ship, or the money that keeps the company running simply doesn't come in. If you're an employee and crunch time comes around, as it generally does, you're better off with a company that's made preparations for surviving crunch rather than the one that simply waged a moral crusade against it.
But companies should, as a general rule, be making an effort to reduce crunch where possible, yes?
That's what I've been saying, Chan. They already do, and it doesn't work. Crunch isn't some distinct stage of development that gets put on the calendar where everybody comes into the office and goes, nuts, looks like it's crunch time again, cancel the kids' Little League game. Crunch is a panic response to the realization that all of their previous planning has failed to get the game out on time. If you've got the budget, if your buyers can handle it, then absolutely push your release date far enough away that you can complete the game without crunching. I'm just saying it's not a common option. Most companies need to get the game out as soon as possible.
Thus far, we've been talking about crunch in terms of crisis management. What about developers like Rockstar, where long hours and overtime are pretty much a baked-in part of the company culture?
Well, on the one hand, the consequences of overwork and exhaustion are very real. Depression, broken marriages, pretending that energy drinks don't taste like week-old Mountain Dew filtered through an espresso machine, and one would expect a responsible company to take steps to mitigate these issues. On the other hand, Rockstar's never attempted to keep it a secret that they enjoy chaining employees to their desks and poking them in the sensitive bits with cattle prods when productivity starts falling off, so it's not the sort of thing that prospective employees can claim ignorance of. For some people, it's worth it. Rockstar undeniably puts out a quality product. When it comes to large-scale productions, for some people it's better to get crushed to death building the Great Pyramids than to spend a relatively mundane day doing maintenance work on the world's largest chicken statue in Branson.
How poetic, brother. Also, we seem to be running out of time. What do you say we move on to the mailbag?
All right, Chan, what do we have today?
Today's question comes from internet person Mance_King, who asks, "Where did you guys go?"
Where did we go? Well, yesterday I went to the dry cleaners on Morton Street to pick up my suit that Arnie had somehow managed to spill like a gallon of pork-flavored ramen noodles on.
I think they're actually asking why we haven't posted any videos in several months, brother.
Yes, that's a little less alarming than random internet people trying to learn our personal schedules. Yes, we have actually been absent from the video side of things for a while, and if this is the only place you follow us, I can see how that would register as a disappearance. We have not, however, gone dormant. Just follow the link to our Patreon page and you'll see that we're still as active as ever, filling the world with the kind of shenanigans that you, the audience, so fervently demand.
It is weird that you demand that, audience.
While you're there, consider tossing us some cash to support our comedic endeavors. And then actually do it, don't just consider it. Your support makes future videos, comics, and games possible.
Time to wrap up, brother.
Right then. Until next time, video gamers, this is Shuenshin Tanaka reminding you that, as Miyamoto says, a delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad.
So when does Duke Nukem Forever finally become good?
So long, video gamers.